would be fabulous if you can, to avoid, all of these.
Andrew has become an expert over the last little while. So.
Well, I can give it a shot, no problem. I don't want to burden anybody else, but if you don't mind, I would appreciate it.
So, Chair Merritt, the meeting is live.
Thank you. This is a meeting of the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee being held on Zoom and will be broadcast live over on the YouTube channel. I'll call the meeting to order by calling the roll, and I'll ask members to just say hello as I call your name. Councillor Kathy Deagle-Gammon.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Councillor Tim Oathith.
Hello.
Gina Jones-Wilson has sent her regrets for tonight. Jacqueline Levere.
Hello.
Donalda McIsaac.
Hello.
Stacy Rutherham.
Good evening.
Mark Backerdax.
Yes,
did I get
very
it?
Good. You did. Thank you. And hello.
Trevor Ennis.
Hello.
Trevor, there you are.
I'm here.
Thank you. And we have a guest, Councillor Paul Russell.
Hello.
Good evening.
Okay, we have staff members present. Maureen Ryan is the planner for case number 23720. Ann Totten is the planner for case number 23028. Brittany Mclean is planner for case number 22691. And Alicia Wall is our legislative support. Andrea Lavassi Wood is our legislative assistant. And I'm going to hand the meeting over to the legislative assistant at this moment to conduct the election of the chair.
Thank you, Chair Merritt. What I'm going to do is ask for if there's any nominations for the position of chair of the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee.
Hi, Andrea. I'm happy to nominate Ann. She's very new at this, but she might be up to the job if we talked her into it.
I think she just might. So do I have a seconder for that nomination?
I will
I'll
second
it.
So I believe that was either Councillor Deagle-Gammon or Stacy, I think.
Stacy beat me to it.
Stacy? Okay,
Yeah.
Stacy beat Councillor to it. Okay. So Ann, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I'll accept.
Okay, thank you very much. So according to our rules of procedure, I have to call a total of 3 times for a nomination. So I'm going to call a second time. Are there any nominations for the position of chair? And I'm going to call a third time. Are there any nominations for the position of chair? Okay, so I'm going to call for a motion for nominations to cease. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please?
So moved, Tim.
Okay, thank you. And a seconder?
I'll second.
Second that.
Okay, that would be Mark. Where there was just the one nomination of Ann Merritt as chair of the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee, I do declare that Ann is our chair. So I will hand the floor over to Chair Merritt for the election of vice chair.
Thank you very much. And I do appreciate that you've got so much confidence in me. And I hope that we will have a vice chair who sometimes will let me have a night off. Okay, I will now call for nominations for vice chair of the Planning Advisory Committee.
Madam Chair, it's Tim. I'm just wondering, I should have done this beforehand, but Jacqueline and Stacy have been great contributors and regular attenders. I'm just wondering if they have expressed any interest in being nominated, either of them, if we could ask them. Would that be fair?
Yeah, would either one of you like to answer that question? Are you interested in being nominated as vice chair at the moment?
I
Jacqueline?
think
Stacy, okay. Go ahead, Stacy.
I think Jacqueline would make a wonderful vice chair.
Well, Good
Hey,
railroad
Stacy,
here.
Stacy, I was going to nominate you. There you go.
Yeah.
I know,
And,
Stacy, that you have a lot of other responsibilities that are keeping you really busy these days. So
True.
I accept the nomination if that pleases everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.
I second that nomination.
Can you please give me your name when you make a,
My apologies, Madam Chair. Councillor Daigle Gammon would second the nomination of Jacqueline Levert as Vice Chair.
okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations for Vice Chair?
All for the question.
Any other, no, it has to be done 3 times. Any other nominations for the Vice Chair? Any other nominations for Vice Chair? Okay, I will call for a motion to move that nomination cease.
So moved, Tim.
A seconder for that motion?
I'll second it, Donalda.
Thank you. Moved and seconded by Tim and Donalda that nomination cease. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Welcome aboard.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving along here. And we're next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 8th, 2021. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of December 8th?
So moved, Tim.
Seconder, please. Check in. I'll second.
Okay, moved by Tim, seconded by Jacqueline, that we approve the minutes of December 8th, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any, I'm sorry, I didn't ask for errors or omissions. Are there any errors or omissions? Okay, hearing none. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Clerk, are there any additions or modifications to the agenda?
Chair Merritt, there's no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Thank you. Does anyone on the committee have any requests to make any changes? Hearing none, we will move along. Can I have a motion then to approve the agenda as circulated?
Motion to approve?
Yes, thank you. That was Mark.
Mark, yes, sir.
Please say your name when you make a motion or you second the motion. Okay, a seconder for that motion.
I'll second that. It's Trevor.
Thank you. Moved by Mark, seconded by Trevor. I'll get your names right eventually. All in favor, say aye.
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 Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried. So our agenda has been approved. Call for the declaration of conflict of interests. And for you new people, you have been told what that means. If anyone has any conflict of interest, we need you to declare it now. Hearing none, I will assume there are none. Consideration of deferred business, there is none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Is there any correspondence?
Chair Merritt, there was no correspondence received by the clerk's office for this meeting.
Thank you. Are there any petitions?
And there were no petitions received.
Thank you. Okay, then we will move right along to our reports. And item number 7.1 is the staff report. 7.1.1, case number 23720, 9 Crestfield Drive, Hammonds Plains. And we'll have a presentation by Maureen Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Andrea, for agreeing to navigate these slides on my behalf. Yes, the case before you is brought to you by ZAP Consulting on behalf of Hardy Investments. We're proposing a seniors housing development at 9 Crestfield in Hammonds Plains. Next slide, please. The proposed 9 Crestfield is located in an area that I used to know as the Village of Uplands Park, and adjacent to what used to be the Wesleyan Church. This is north of Kingswood. It's off of Crestfield, directly across the street, across from Hammonds Plains Road. You will have Majestic, and the site is, if I could have the next slide, please, derives access directly off of Crestfield, and the site is fully treed, well, almost fully treed, with the exception of a portion of it that has been cleared next to the former Wesleyan Church, where the driveway at the northern end of this site, or southern end of the site, I should say, goes directly into that vacant area. Next slide, please. This is a view to the northeast to the former Wesleyan Church and community cemetery that is at the that is adjacent to the site. Next slide, please. This is a community park. Well, actually, these are the community mailboxes, but the Village of Uplands Park had a neighborhood park established in this area directly across the street from 9 Crestfield. And this is a view looking directly toward the intersection of Hammonds Plains Road and Crestfield, and also the Majestic Court street, which is going to be the home of the new Frenchies, a development proposal under consideration. Next slide, please. This is a site plan showing the proposed development of a 29 unit apartment building, which is at the top right hand of this site plan, and it also includes 5 townhouse blocks. The 2 on the upper side of the proposed driveway entrance contain 6 units for a total of 12 in all, and the 3 blocks are 4-block units situated to on the opposite side of the proposed driveway entrance. To the north, I should say top right-hand side of the site, there is some proposed parking adjacent to the cemetery area, which I showed you previously on the back of the Wesleyan Church. And to the lower right-hand side is the Wesleyan Church, or former Wesleyan Church, which is now a vacant building. Directly across the driveway from the proposed church, there is a proposed recreation center for indoor amenity, and it features a guest house for guests visiting the residents of this seniors housing complex. To the right, left-hand side of around the turning bulb, there is a community garden and seating area for outdoor activities. And to the top left-hand corner, that is the location of the proposed on-site septic system. All in all, there will be 53 units, 29, as I mentioned, within the proposed apartment unit complex and 24 within the townhouse units. There is a substantial amount of, well, there's enough parking provided for underground parking for each of the 29 units and a parking space for each of the townhouse blocks, with the addition of surface parking for guests and overflow. Next slide, please. And this is a building elevation of one of the townhouse blocks. On the top, you can see a 6-unit townhouse block. It features a single-story unit in between garages that are peaked with pitched roofs. The materials appear brick in fabric. The bottom rendering shows the back of the townhouse units, and my understanding from the consultant is that the depth of the garages are a bit shallow, and this back feature is showing an amenity space within the unit of the garage. Next slide, please. This is a elevation of the 29-unit building. It features balconies, and it is 3 stories in height, which is within the height elevation shown in the maximum elevation being 35 feet in height. This is within that range. Next slide. The proposed development is within the residential designation, which is designed to protect the low density residential environment. The next slide will tell you that the site is also zone P2, which is community facility, reflective of the former ownership of this site by the Wesleyan Church before Hardy Investments acquired its interest. However, they are proposing a private development here via policy P39, which allows consideration of a seniors housing development by development agreement. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the site is zone P2 community facility, and the existing use of the site, it's vacant, but partially cleared and partially forested, as we had spoke about previously. Next slide, please. So under policy P39 of the municipal planning strategy for Beaverbank, Hammonds Plains, and Upper Sackville, there are a number of policy criteria. I've picked out those that are highly relevant to the proposed development. The first being that the architectural design, scale, and compatibility of exterior finish is compatible with the adjacent development within the surrounding area. The policy speaks to the need for the adequacy of separation distances from low density residential development, and that landscaping measures are incorporated to reduce visual effects. In this particular regard, the consultant had deliberately positioned the multiple unit dwelling to the top left-hand corner of the site, away from the low density residential environment, bringing the single story townhouse blocks closer to the surrounding low density residential area, which with pitched roofs and features that facilitate its compatibility with the surrounding area. They are also proposing to establish fencing and landscaping from the rear yards of the proposed single unit, the existing single unit dwellings along Crestfield, and also proposing fencing and the types of materials adjacent to the cemetery. I shouldn't say materials, I should say development. They're proposing surface parking spaces, which do not require a high degree of excavation, adjacent to the existing cemetery, so as to avoid disturbance, and proposing landscaping in that area and fencing. You also have to look at a preference for a site which has access to commercial and community facilities. There are said facilities within that area under the C5 commercial area, where we at the servicing this surrounding area with pharmacy, grocery, and other commercial activities, which are within a feasible distance from the proposed development. And general maintenance of the development is also another concern, and the consultants have, in this particular case, advised that they will have property managers providing continuous maintenance of the development. And preference for a development which serves a local community need. Well, we do know that our population is aging, and there is a high degree of demand for access to seniors housing, so they may age in place and live within their communities. So I will move on to the next slide and tell you a bit more about what we have heard. We held a public consultation through a mail-out notification as a result of COVID-19. It would have been nicer to meet with the local community, but I understand that the developer took it upon themselves to host a meeting in Bears Lake and invited community members to meet with them about the proposed development. We mailed out 147 fact sheets to people within 500 feet of the perimeter of the proposed development. And from that, we received a total of 11 calls and emails, and we had 69 webpage views. Generally, what we heard were concerns over traffic impact. That seemed to be the biggest concern of all. Some members of the community felt that the traffic impact study didn't take into account the cumulative effects of proposed developments in the surrounding area of at Kenwood, or the proposed Frenchies at Majestic Court. They also felt that the collection of data in April 2021 was, next slide, please, was not an appropriate time to collect data. They felt that that would be an undercount because they felt that we were in a lockdown situation in April of 2021. The particular concerns about traffic were mainly around gaining exit from Crestfield onto Hammonds Plains Road during peak traffic conditions. An impossible situation. The entrance, the intersection is below a blind crest, and people feel there's very little decision-making time to make a left-hand turn. And if you're trying to go towards Tantallon off of Crestfield, it's almost impossible. People feel that they have to turn right and travel, down to Kingswood so they can gain access to traffic control lights, so they can gain a safe access to Hammonds Plains Road. They also felt that the left-hand turns off the Hammonds Plains Road into Crestfield was arduous and very impactful at during peak conditions. A lot of people were concerned about the impacts during the construction phase of the proposed development on their children in the area, who play on the streets, walk on the streets without sidewalks. And they were concerned about the loss of parking around the former Wesleyan Church. Because the area, with the Village of Uplands Park community neighborhood park, especially during community events like Remembrance Day. There is a great deal of public interest in accessing the area, and they were concerned about the loss of this site for parking because it has been traditionally used in that manner. Some other concerns that arose were around stormwater, concerns about ponding on the site presently, and concerns about future flooding should the entire site become cleared. And without that vegetation, there would be increased runoff and potential flooding. They were concerned about their basements and concerned about ponding in the area. They were concerned about loss of habitat, wildlife in the area. And some people expressed concern about the effects of blasting on their basements and potential impacts arising there. And we also heard from 3 members of the community who were seeking access as potential future tenants to the development, needing housing access to seniors housing. One particular individual expressed a need for, access to affordable housing. But more importantly, this person had said that, and it was rather interesting, that seniors don't always want to live in apartment buildings. They want to have access to that small ground-oriented unit with a backyard and a garage that they can live independently. And so that spoke to the fulfillment of need of a seniors housing development to the surrounding area. And if I could have the next slide, please. Oh, I think, Andrea?
Yeah, looks like.
Sorry, my apologies. I believe, Jill, are you having issues with your with your screen sharing? Okay.
Well, to sum up, we're pretty much near
Which slide are you on, Maureen? And I'll share it.
Okay, I will scroll down. I'm not on any slide. I'm speaking from
Okay, sorry.
slides that you're showing, but I need to go to the scope of the review, slide 14.
Okay.
So are we in view?
Just one moment, please. Just give me one moment.
Here we go. Can everybody see the slide?
Yeah, so the scope of review slide is up, Maureen.
Okay, that's great. So, Madam Chair and members of the Northwest PAC, to conclude, the scope of this review for the PAC is to assess the architectural design, the scale, and the bulk and compatibility with the surrounding area, the adequacy of separation distances from low-density residential development, the adequacy of open space to meet the needs of seniors, and preference for a site which has access to commercial and community uses, and preference for a development which serves local community need, in addition to traffic generation and adequacy of road networks leading to or adjacent to the site and parking. So at this point, I don't know if the chair needs me to undertake this analysis or if you want to have questions, because I I know that you have been diligently reviewing the case file on the website.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Maureen. I think if it's all right with you, we will go to the section of the meeting where we ask questions and you can answer them for us, hopefully.
Perfect.
That's probably the best way to find out what we need to know. Okay. I will go around in my usual manner. I call out your name and then you speak. I ask you not to speak until I call your name. Okay. And we will begin with Jacqueline Levere.
Thank you. Madam Chair, can I ask more than one question?
Yes, but try to keep it fairly tight because we have a couple of more things to look at tonight.
So my first question is regarding the water concerns. There was also a letter sent on, with those concerns. How is that addressed, or how is that looked after, or what? Is there anything that can be done to alleviate the concerns of the people? Is there a way to make sure that whatever is built does not negatively affect the people who are on Crest, just adjacent to it?
Are you speaking to the stormwater management concerns, Jacqueline?
To the water table disturbance, which would cause problems because of cleared land and less vegetation and perhaps flooded basements.
Absolutely. Under the provisions of development agreement, we are, and also under our bylaws for grade alteration, we're entitled to the submission of a stormwater management plan, which would look at the finished grades and the potential for effective flooding, and to put in to ensure that mitigative measures are introduced in site development to address those anticipated concerns.
Perfect. Just one more question. I'm trying to understand from the design. I know it's early and stuff, but it seems like there will be, I'm translating in my head from French, gates, and it's not what I want to say, fencing. Totally maybe around the property. Did I see like gates or something that they were
You saw
proposing?
some perimeter fencing on the site plan adjacent to the cemetery, and some perimeter fencing along the backyards of the single unit dwellings along Crest Field.
Okay.
And landscaping.
So my question was, when we first discussed this a little ways back, there was something in the proposal that there would be walkways and a way that people who wanted to remain active and live in these townhouses could get to those community buildings and the value foods and the pharmacy and all that. I'm just wondering, I couldn't see on the plan where, if there was, but I'm hoping there's a sidewalk or a walkway or something that is still in this design that you just proposed or showed us.
There is a proposal to facilitate a walkway access to the Hammonds Plains Road, but I have to tell you that that is something that we will bear in mind through the negotiation of the development agreement, and ensure that those concerns are met before this matter is brought back to the Northwest Community Council for a public hearing and approval.
And just one last question. It talks about outdoor recreation. I'm concerned. My concern is that they live up to some of the other things that were promised, but I see it's well developed and stuff. I'm just wondering if there's idea of what that outdoor recreation will look like. Would it just be sort of where people sit and then maybe a lawn or something over in that corner?
From what I can ascertain from the proposed site plan, there's a community garden, a place for people to communicate or meet, within that area, and work cooperatively in a community gardening project with seating areas around the side.
and just one last comment I'd like to make is that I have heard from a lot of seniors in my community and throughout the area that have said that there are not enough of these low-rise townhouses as an option for housing, as opposed to everybody moving into apartments. And there are very few of them available within the city and outskirts of the city. And I just wanted to say that I've heard that people want that a lot, whenever possible. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Thank you very much. Okay, Donalda, questions or comments?
Good evening. Mine's more along the comments, and Jacqueline touched on most of them actually, because I think the thing is foot traffic, making sure that people are able to get around, not just walking, but pathways that would be, is a consideration given to pathways that will accommodate wheelchairs, for example, or walkers, or somebody who has mobility issues, that those trails would be trails that those types of vehicles could move onto quite easily. I was wondering if there's any consideration been given to that.
The developer proposes to develop barrier-free walkways with appropriate grades to facilitate wheelchair access. At the front of the building, there's ramps, accessibility. They're proposing to light the pathways to facilitate access during the night and prevent hazards. They're also proposing a number of other barrier-free accessibility features within the interior of the building, but I won't get into those. But yes, they are proposing wheelchair accessibility on their walkways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donalda. And Stacy Rutherham.
I think Jacqueline and Donalda both asked the questions that I would have asked, so thank you.
Okay, if you think of anything later, you can come back. Okay, Mark Backerdax.
You're getting better each time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think my concerns or questions were more around the traffic impact, especially since this entryway would be so close to the Crestfield and Hammonds Plains intersection. And do we feel comfortable that the traffic study has maybe a long-term mitigation plan if that is an issue?
It wasn't an issue, Mark, according to the professional engineer undertaking the traffic impact statement. They looked at the standards for clearance from the TAC manual and from HRM standards, and felt that the driveway entrance was sufficiently clear from the intersection of Hammonds Plains Road and Crestfield.
Thank you.
Okay,
If you'd like me to delve into the specific meat of this, I can. I have the recommendations in front of me, but I don't want to disconnect in any way from this conversation, other than to conclude that the traffic engineer or the engineering professional undertaking this study had concluded that it was adequate for both TAC and HRM standards.
Okay.
Thank you.
And they also pointed out in the traffic impact statement that the movement of the driveway, what they'll be doing here is they'll be removing two of the driveways, consolidating to one, and the movement of that driveway gives sufficient clearance from the speed bump to the north of the site, because there's the Crestfield has traffic calming measures in place. Right now, that driveway entrance is only 1.5 meters away. With the proposed new driveway located further north towards the former Wesleyan Church, they'll have a 10.5 meter clearance.
Okay, that helpful?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
okay, thank you. And we'll move on to Trevor Ennis.
I have no questions on this case at the time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Diggle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do have a few questions. And so a follow-up is just around a little bit of the traffic concern, but it's more like, what is the standard or what is acceptable when you've got one driveway in, you've got a 29 unit apartment building and 6 townhouses, and there's just that one way in and out. So is there a, like, that gives me a little bit of pause to worry about, to be honest. I do know that area fairly well. And, you know, getting to the Hammonds Plains Road and down there, it's a very busy spot. So the driveway further away from the Hammonds Plains Road is nice, but yeah, just this whole thing about one driveway in, there's no emergency exit, it doesn't cut through. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And it's difficult because everybody does know that we need to increase our inventory and housing stock for people who are seniors. So I worry, and I don't want us to cut any corners, and not that we're doing that, of course, Marianne, but you know, just kind of worried about saying it's seniors housing. Can we say that when you look at the units and in the presentation, were any of those fully accessible units? Are they just built senior friendly? Are they built in terms of what is inclusive barrier-free design? So I have a couple of questions about that. If it's going to be, as it is stated for seniors, then how many units are accessible? And when I look at the exterior, the parking, I wonder about accessible parking spots for people who are going to visit, people who are going to be tenants, those kinds of things. So those would be my questions for now.
Okay. So let me, we've got potentially 3 questions here. So let me, in order of priority, begin with the need for second access. Our subdivision bylaw, our standards typically require the need for a second access around 200 units. The traffic impact study concluded that there are 100, that the number of units within the area, in addition to the proposed development, is below that requirement. A response to your second question, which was around barrier-free accessible units, the proponent within the, I'll speak to the multiple unit dwelling, 12 of the 29 units are barrier, I should step back and clarify. The municipality, when it comes to interior design, a development agreement is off limits. That's beyond our scope of authority. However, we do require them to design the development in accordance with, to meet the needs of seniors. And sometimes it's very challenging for this municipality to require that when we have no control of the interior. However, having said that, the proponent is proposing to create 12 of the 29 units as barrier-free accessible in accordance with the National Building Code, with lowered countertops, wider hallways, grab bars, elevator, of course, within the 3-unit building, and they're proposing to create those walkways that are of appropriate grade and width to facilitate wheelchair access, and ramps into the proposed apartment building.
Okay. And in terms of the parking spots? They
have underground parking for each one of the units within the apartment building, and they have garages for each of the townhouse units. So they will have enclosed indoor parking areas for egress during inclement access and egress during inclement weather, and so considered accessible.
And Marianne, just the visitor parking that is to the right there, do they have accessible parking spots?
They have about 40 surface parking spots proposed adjacent to the cemetery, within walking distance of the apartment building. And they have a few parking spots near the community recreation center.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Okay, and now Councillor Oathit.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Maureen, for the presentation. Just for the folks who are new on the committee, I think it might be good if we explained a little bit, Maureen, about our ability to enforce, if you will, seniors facility, in the sense that it can be designed for seniors, it can be marketed towards seniors, but we can't actually per se say that only seniors can live in that, although the Human Rights Commission has come out in the past when we've asked for opinion. I believe they even have something on their website now saying that they wouldn't consider it to be discriminatory if somebody did say it has to be seniors. But there is that. So when somebody, and for the new members, when somebody speaks to us someday at a public hearing or sends us an email and says, well, you know, you say it's going to be seniors, but you can't force it to be seniors, that is somewhat true. So I don't know if, Maureen, when I'm through, if you want to explain that a little more or not, that's fine. But certainly I agree with several of you that have said that this is the type of thing that is needed for seniors, and certainly that seniors want and that will be targeted. I think what we've heard from the public, and I believe the councillor for the area, Maureen, does have the concern a little bit about the traffic as well, and the coming out and trying to turn right or left, but particularly left towards Tantallon. And I know the engineer for the proponent says it does meet the standards. Although, again, for the folks that are new around the table, I don't think I've ever seen, and Anne, you've been here longer than me, a developer's engineer say that it would cause problems and it shouldn't be permitted. So I always sort of laugh when I see that. But I think my question for Maureen is, have our engineers reviewed this yet, both with the bare, you know, does it meet the minimum requirements and setbacks, etc., but also what I call the common sense tick box there, where they actually stand there and look and make sure the view planes are okay and the reasonableness of this, and, you know, just investigate whether there is an alternative. Because I think we've had this discussion before, and the councillor from the area, like I am when it comes to the Bedford Highway, is certainly concerned about the Hammonds Plains Road. So just your thoughts on that, Maureen, mainly for the benefit of our new colleagues. Thanks.
Okay. A couple of questions here. Tenure of seniors. It's a quagmire, one that the municipality has been facing for some time, because particularly in our rural areas where communities made exception to the rule of protecting the single unit dwelling environment, they wanted to allow for the acceptance of forms of housing that, you know, 30 years ago accommodated seniors, and which at that time were multiple unit dwellings. And now we're starting to hear that they really like these, at grade, accessible, independent units where they can maintain their backyard. However, insofar as control of who lives there, the municipality does not have legislative authority to control tenure over who lives in a unit. That would be considered discriminatory in accordance with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I do understand that the argument that's coming out, more recently about you can discriminate favorably in the area of addressing need. However, that is not an area that we have, as a municipality, tried to challenge, because our policies are a bit older. At a time when it was, we had no certainty over whether or not, no certainty whatsoever, that we wouldn't face legal challenge if we tried to specify in a development agreement that only people 55 years of age and over can live in this building. We felt that would have attracted, challenge And so we designed policies creatively at the time to try to ensure that at least the building was designed to meet the needs of seniors. And even then, we're limited because we have no controls over the interior layout under the provisions of the development agreement, but developers have cooperatively offered to provide that to assure the municipality that they're attempting to meet the needs of seniors by designing in that way. Now, your second question, and forgive me, Councillor Outhead, I just
It's to do with traffic and traffic analysis, our internal analysis of that, checking the common sense and visibility boxes, just a little more comfort that we are looking at alternatives if they could be required, if it would make more sense. Or if it's just, they're going to say their recommendation was that it meets the basic requirements, and HRM will say, well, I guess it does. And if you're willing to put your stamp on it, we'll accept it. Is there anything going on behind the scenes to give us any comfort on I think some legitimate concerns about the traffic?
The traffic impact statement has been reviewed by our engineering professionals and has been accepted. Hence, we thought it worthy of presentation to the public at a public meeting. Not being a specialist in this area, I can't, delve into the standards of care under a traffic impact statement, because that's beyond my qualifications as a planner, not an engineer. I have read that, traffic impact statements, when you're talking about traffic impact, it's about the physical capability of the roadway accepting the traffic that is generated by the proposed development safely. It doesn't mean that it won't be that you're going to avoid traffic congestion. You're going to reduce your level of service, and probably come down to a level of surface where you're stop and go, and you're going to have challenges getting through through the traffic flow to your destination point. But in this particular case, having reviewed this traffic impact statement, it would appear to me that they have met the standards outlined by the municipality and by the Transportation Association of Canada, and that it's been reviewed by our municipality and considered acceptable.
Yeah, and I wasn't so concerned about the capacity, because we know a lot of our roads are at capacity, and this wouldn't add that much to it. It's the safety issue, if you pointed out, that makes me a little bit concerned. But I guess in our recommendations, we could mention that if we want to, or maybe we're satisfied that the due diligence has been done. But anyway, thank you very much, Maureen, and thank you, Madam Chair.
But just to qualify for you, Councillor Outhead, I should point this out. This traffic impact study was assessing the impact of the development for traffic capability on Crestview, and through that intersection, they looked at the need for traffic warrants. But having heard from several members of the public through this consultation process, their concerns are very valid. Hammonds Plains Road has been noted in our municipal planning strategy, first adopted in this area in 1987, as having hazardous road conditions, and trying to gain access into a roadway under a blind crest, I'm sure, is quite a challenge.
Well, and that's what concerns me, despite what the traffic studies have said and our folks accepting it. So I'm not sure where we go from here, Anne, but I did want to point out that I think there are some legitimate concerns, and Maureen, you've explained this very well. That's appreciated.
Thank you.
If I may, Madam
Okay.
Chair, can I just add something to the comment that Maureen had made, just for the councillor and for the committee?
Yes, Thea, go ahead.
Thank you. And I mean, Maureen has done a wonderful job explaining the application and kind of these particular pieces, but it's not a file that she's had from day one. She was provided the file just within the last couple months. So the piece I did want to share is that it's my recollection when the other planner had the file, is that when they were making their application, we suggested to the consultants that they take a close look at the intersection and also actually listen in and kind of watch the previous council meeting where there was a site plan approval, an appeal, and Councillor, you probably recall this, for a property across the street on Hammond's Plains Road on Majestic. And we knew that there was quite a few concerns in this area and that this intersection really needed a careful look. So we made sure that we identified these concerns that we were aware of before they made their application to ensure that their traffic study information specifically looked at that issue. So in this particular instance, I feel like we might have a little bit more information from that traffic perspective than what we would normally get when we just first receive it, because we very specifically asked them to take a look. So I just
that is
kind of
comforting,
share
and
that.
I might have been confusing it with the one across the street, but I remembered something was jumping out at me and also Pam's concerns. So yeah, thank you, Thea.
Yeah, we did ask the consultants to take closer consideration of that, and we were looking for that through our review. So thank you for raising it.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Chair, I can just confirm that in accordance with, the traffic impact study, to my surprise, having reviewed it again, did take into account Kenwood, the Frenchies across the street at Majestic, and this development together. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Russell, you're there somewhere.
I am here. I don't have any questions on this. I'm interested in item number 7.1.3. However, I would like to relinquish my time to Jacqueline.
Okay, Jacqueline, yes, you have your hand up, and
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to be as brief as possible because we do have 2 other items to look at tonight.
I just wanted to mention that I went to visit the site and then I travel that road almost every day to use the St. Margaret's Bay Center on my way there. So I use Hammond's Plains quite a bit. I'd just like to make 2 little points. The first is, if there's no storm and there's no black ice, it's generally clear sailing. So on those days, I'm hoping the seniors would stay home. But the other thing that I have noticed through using it during the day as I'm retired is that between and I use it almost every day, between the times of like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, traffic on Hammond's Plains is not so bad and it's quite, manageable. And there are times when it's really, really difficult. So I'm just wanted to put that out, that perhaps seniors would make that decisions in and of themselves to avoid being on the road between 8 and 9:30 and 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock in as much as possible. But definitely it is a concern. But there are ways and there are times when it is much less of a concern. And it's a lived experience. I just wanted to share.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and I really have no comments to make on this. I will now just ask someone to make a motion. And as we were told earlier, our motions can be to accept the proposal as it's presented to us, to accept it with conditions, and those conditions could be that the traffic, the location of the driveways, any of the concerns that we had when we were discussing it, or we can reject the proposal, but we have to have very good reasons for that. And what we're sending through to the council is basically recommendations. We do not have the ability to say no to something and have it disappear. That's not our job. They get paid for that, and we don't. So I'm going to ask that somebody make a motion
Merritt, sorry, excuse the interruption.
Yeah.
This is Andrea here. I just wanted to advise the committee that I did circulate correspondence for this item 7.1.1 after the beginning of our meeting. I just wanted to confirm that with the members of the committee.
Okay.
And they reflect the comments that Maureen was discussing that she had received from the public engagement that was linked to on the website. In fact, the correspondence had been sent to Maureen during the public engagement piece. So if the committee wants to review that correspondence, they can.
Okay, is it something that you can put up, or do we have to go look?
No,
for
it's in your email.
Okay. Oh, okay. So does anyone want to go there and look now?
Madam Chair, this is Stacy. I did have a look when it came through, and it's the commentary about concerns about water, concerns about traffic, concerns about access to the park, and so on. So I think Maureen did a good job of kind of outlining all of the points that were made in those pieces of correspondence already.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stacy, for doing that. Okay. We still need a motion here to get this off of the table and go on to our next bit.
May I make a motion?
Certainly.
I'd like to make a motion that in favor of this, with recommendation that the water issues be definitely looked at and followed up to make sure that the people who live in that area do not have negative effects from the building of that area, of that facility, and that there is walkways and connections to the community for the people who will be living there.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add as far as recommendations? We all get to add our own little bit there if we wish.
Madam Chair, this is Stacy. I would maybe say, along with the water concerns, there's a septic system. So some condition on the upkeep and the monitoring of the septic, because there were concerns from members of the community about what happens if it fails. So that's something else that could be included with the water concerns.
I may be wrong, but would that come under Department of the Environment, Maureen?
It would. That is the bailiwick of the Nova Scotia Department of Environment, but we can talk to the developer about how they're proposing to maintain the building, and we can have some discussion about this. Yes.
Okay. So the septic system then. Septic system maintenance, would that be what you would want to put that under? Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to ask then that if Alicia could read back the motion.
Sure, Madam Chair, just give me one quick second.
Okay.
Sorry for giving you that work. It wasn't quite perfectly worded there.
Okay. As I saw it was a motion to approve with the attached concerns that any stormwater issues be looked at and handled. There be walkways provided for the people to reach out to the community around them, and that there be assurances that the septic system would be maintained properly. Is that what you heard, Alicia?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just one quick sec.
Yeah. Sometimes we like to keep these people on their toes.
Okay, so I have that the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee has reviewed the application for case 23720 and recommends approval of the application with consideration given to addressing any water issues so as to not negatively impact existing houses, developing walkways and connections, and insurances that the septic system be maintained properly.
Okay. If everybody agrees, can we have a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it. Ronaldo?
Okay. It was moved by, I've forgotten already, Jacqueline, and seconded by Donalda, that we approve the proposal with the conditions as we listed them. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay.
Just a question with
Yes.
regards to the wording of the recommendation with the walkways. I think we're looking to make sure that they are accommodating wheelchair widths.
Yeah, but I think that was going to be handled by planning. What we were looking for here was that there be connections, adequate walkways with connections to the rest of the community around, so that people weren't kept within the fences of the development, that they were able to get out to the stores and various ways to move around the community itself.
Okay, I will be a yay.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we could say, in addition to those paths, those trails being there, that they built to accessibility standards. If that makes Trevor feel better, I think that could be a friendly amendment.
Okay, accessible walkways then. That
Noted,
work?
Madam.
Pardon?
I added that developing walkways and connections built to accessibility standards.
Okay, how's that? Good? Okay, we'll start again then. And I will ask again, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Nay. Hearing none, motion is carried. And thank you very much. And Mr. Wallace, thank you for being here. And we'll ask you now to leave the meeting.
Thank you, Anne.
Okay, thank you, Maureen.
Bye.
And I am going to now move along here if I can find where I am, because I'm okay. Case number 7.1.2, case number 23028, 110 Waterfront Drive in Bedford. And our presentation is by Ann Totten.
Hello. I'll just, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Ann Totten.
I don't think we've met before, have we?
No, it's my first time presenting to this committee. So yes, thank you. And I will just look around for the screen sharing stuff. Okay. And can everyone see the presentation?
Not yet.
Nope. Okay. I've had this problem.
Everybody has this problem at least
there
once.
we go. Share.
Hey.
And
yes.
Okay, sounds good. Great, so thank you. I'm here to present on an application that would see the Bedford Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw amended to allow a single unit dwelling at 110 Waterfront Drive. So the subject property is currently, it's located in an area that was originally part of a 1991 development agreement from the Bedford Waterfront Development Corporation, so essentially Develop Nova Scotia's predecessor. And so the entire area is designated Waterfront Comprehensive Development District. And the proposal is asking to have it redesignated to residential. And the site is currently zoned Waterfront Comprehensive Development District as well. And they're asking to have it rezoned to residential single unit. Under the existing policy, only townhouse or multi-unit style residential is allowed on this site with a minimum of 3 units. So they're looking to have that changed to allow just 1 single unit dwelling. So this is just a bit of the site context here. It's outlined in red. You can see that it basically abuts De Wolf Park and the Bedford waterfront there, as well as a series of townhouses. There is no barrier between the site or fence between it and the actual waterfront park, so it does appear that it might be part of the parkland, but the site is actually privately owned. So that's I think caused some surprise in the community. I've taken a couple pictures there. This is one there. You can see it with the sign on the lot to give you a sense of the depth of it. It's right there next to the townhouses. Here's just a couple more pictures. So one is standing on A.Y. Jackson Court. So what would be the front of the proposed property looking out towards the harbor. And the other side is taken from the boardwalk looking up towards A.Y. Jackson Court. So that just gives you a sense of the overall size and feel of the place. So the proposal is for a single unit dwelling. I should mention that while this is the proposed plan, if it's rezoned to residential single unit, it's not a guarantee that this particular building would be constructed. It would just be anything that's permitted in the RSU zone. The applicant has submitted this though and provided a number of points in favor. So they've suggested that the lot is irregular size and shape, which makes it difficult to construct the townhouses or multi-unit dwelling that would be permitted under the zone currently. Under the current zoning regulations, each unit would have to have 1.5 parking stalls. So that would be, if you have a minimum of 3 units, you're looking at least 4.5 parking spaces, which would give quite a bit of surface parking and paving in the area. The proposed plan here is similar building style and height to the adjacent townhouses. So, they're proposing that it would be compatible with the existing built form, just introducing a less intensive residential use. And the single unit would just have less traffic than a multi-unit building or series of townhouses and less burden on municipal services. So for the policy context, as I mentioned, the site is a Waterfront Comprehensive Development District. Under the Bedford plan, this calls for a variety of housing styles and sizes, up to a maximum of 8 stories. And across the street from this, there are a couple of 8-story condominium buildings. Policy WF22, so the Waterfront Development District housing policy, permits townhouses and multi-unit dwellings. It also permits a variety of other uses like commercial, office, retail, cultural, and recreational. Policy WF23 dictates that residential units under the waterfront CDD be clustered into a distinct housing area, which this is. So it's a series of townhouses in the area with some multi-story buildings. It's an entirely residential area with surrounding parkland. Under the land use bylaw, the zone basically permits the same uses that are outlined in the plan designation. So, your townhouses, multi-unit buildings, senior complex, some commercial, some parkland, institutional, that kind of thing. Under the existing zone, a development agreement is required for any use. So giving it another zone would lift that requirement. Yeah, and so as mentioned, the plan policies right now don't allow a single unit dwelling, so it does take an overall amendment to the entire MPS, to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, if this is going to proceed. We reviewed the application and the proposal and feel that it does have merit to be considered, and it is currently still also going internal review as well. But on initial read, it does continue the residential character of the neighborhood, just in a less intensive form. So in essence, downzoning the area. The proposed dwelling is similar in height and massing to the surrounding townhouses. As I mentioned, it wouldn't necessarily be that building, but it would fall under the RSU standards in the land use bylaw, which have, I think, a maximum of 35 feet in height. It's an opportunity to develop an irregular shaped lot while minimizing the amount of surface parking. And at first look, there are no obvious traffic or servicing issues, as it would just be one single house. The public participation program that council approved includes a sign on the property that went up in late fall, and we have a website on our planning applications page. In early January, a mail out went to properties within a 100-meter radius of the site. So it was about 350 mail outs that went out. And I have gotten some responses back so far. I've had about 10 emails and 4 phone calls. Some of the concerns that have been noted are losing the green space in the area, whether it could be used for parkland to expand the parkland in the area. The possibility of there being some impact on the local traffic on AY Jackson Court and Convoy Run. There are concerns about the impact on the view, that it would interfere with the view. HRM, though, doesn't protect private view planes. Generally, the view planes that are municipally protected are those that preserve key historical views for areas with public access. So we can't guarantee that the view from the other buildings would be preserved. So following this meeting, this is kind of part of the public participation to get some feedback from residents and community members. It will go, of course, to the Northwest Community Council and then on for a public hearing at Regional Council as its MPS amendment. So council initiated this back in November, and the scope of the review that we're undertaking right now actually includes the appropriateness of the proposed residential single unit zone, the feedback that we're receiving through the public participation program, a more detailed technical review on the impact of traffic and water servicing, as well as a community parkland need, as that's come up quite a bit, and basically any compatibility with the surrounding area. And that's it. So happy to answer any questions. I can stop sharing. There we go.
Mark speaking. Just quick, I think this is the last parcel of land to be developed at that location. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so I guess the concern would be, to maintain accessibility to the boardwalk and I guess the setbacks, because the townhouses are set back well from the boardwalk, and it makes that feel very open as you're walking along there. So we'd want to keep the same or similar setback if possible. And then no further encroachment, obviously, on Wolf Park and along the waterfront area there. So
yeah, the setbacks would be set under the land use bylaw, whatever the standard would be under the residential single unit. I'd have to look up exactly what that would be, but yeah, it would apply to those, to whatever is built. Okay.
Do we, and apologies, it's just being new to the committee, so I'm just asking kind of a generic question, but if we approve that residential zoning there, does it have any impact on further development in that area? Or does it just relate specifically to that one application?
This is a site-specific application, so it would be just this one site. Everything else would continue to be under the Waterfront Comprehensive Development District designation and zone.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
And-
you're muted. Madam Chair, you're muted.
There, okay. I've been trying to get back to you, Mark, to tell you that I have to make sure that everybody gets their chance to speak. So I have a system that I use, which you will get used to. But Councillor Oathead had asked if he could speak to this
Thank
first.
you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I will try and be quick, but I wanted to set the stage here because I do this occasionally, new colleagues, where I'm looking for some guidance on this as well. One of the things we like about PAC as councillors is that we get to get guidance from members of the public as well. So as Anne said, this was a surprise to many, myself included. I always just assumed that this was part of the townhouse land there for them to use in the complex. I didn't realize it was owned and had development rights, zoning under for multi. So this was a bit of a surprise. As in regards to, and I'm going to ask you a few little short snappers here, Anne. So if you got your pen ready, you'll be able to get back to me, hopefully without taking too much time. Mark already clarified that it is site specific, because I've heard from many people and I've tried to clarify. So this would be site specific. It would not have the impact on any other locations in the area. The ownership clarification of this, because of the name of the company and the persons involved with waterfront development and whatnot, I want you to just reemphasize at the end, and that this is owned privately. It is not owned by the Waterfront Development Corporation, HRM, Develop NS, etc. It's privately owned by the builders. Compatibility concern has been very common. You've dealt with this, and I'm still, I'm still wrestling with that one in my mind, the compatibility of having condos and townhouses and apartments there and suddenly a single family dwelling. So I'm still wrestling around with that one in my mind. So I'd be interested to hear other people's comments. The status quo allows the townhouses or multi-units to be built. So just confirm that again for us, Anne, like you did in your presentation. There are some concerns about HRM being perhaps purchasing this to expand the park. I have mentioned that at high level to HRM Parks, but I'm just wondering, Anne, if you've had any discussion with the property owner, if this would be something that's been discussed at all, or indication that the lot might be for sale if HRM was interested in expanding the park. In other words, do we potentially have a willing seller? You mentioned about private views, which is absolutely correct. We have no bylaw that protects private views, and we learned that many times. But there are such things as public views and public view planes. We see that down on the Citadel Hill. We've also seen it, for example, on Larry Utech there with the coach trail and some streets and whatnot, where you cannot block the view from the street, if you will, of the water, of historic sites, etc. Have you investigated to see why? If there are any argument to be made that this would obstruct the public view from people walking along the sidewalk, down the street, coming to the park, etc. So public view versus private. And last but not least, help me understand again, this is a downsizing or downzoning, if you will, to take something from a single family home and turn it to a multi-year commercial. I understand why that causes a zoning change, but why do we need to, when this is in excess to, it essentially is allowing something different, smaller, less intrusive perhaps to be built? Why do we require the zoning change in addition to a DA? Why? I thought we could down zone without having to go through this process. Those are my questions, Anne, and I tried to talk quickly, Anne, other Anne.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, now you have the wisdom from Councillor Oathead, and I will now. I
need Anne's answers, Anne.
Okay, we'll listen to her answers before we go on then.
Okay, so in terms of ownership, yes, the site is owned by Province Development Inc. It's not owned by the Bedford Waterfront Development Corp or any public entity. It's privately owned. The compatibility issue with the townhouse versus single, well, that's something that we're looking for feedback on and considering. I'm not sure if that was so much a question as a comment. The parkland expansion is something that I'm investigating with our Parks Department because they usually have some sort of process to determine the amount of parkland that's already in a community versus what might be needed. But I can follow up with the property owner and ask whether that would be something they'd consider if HRM is interested in buying it. Also, I will look into I hadn't heard of the view planes about blocking from the water from the street, so I will look into that and find out what sort of process goes into that. Having visited the area a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure, like there'd still be a fair bit of access, it seems to me, to see the water, because even without that, it's quite open. Like you come down Convoy Run and it's like completely open. But I will see if there's a standard that we apply for that.
I'm thinking more of Waterfront Drive than Convoy, but thanks.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, water. And for the zoning change to downzone, I'm not sure, you mentioned the DA. We don't need the DA. The problem is there's a DA requirement on it right now. So this process would get rid of the development agreement need and just assign it a zone. And the request is to give it the residential single unit zone. So
that confuses me. I'm used to getting rid of a DA. I'm used to amending a DA. I'm not used to changing zoning in order to avoid a DA. You're going to have to explain that to me a little bit.
Well, it would just be like a site-specific discharge of the DA, because if we were going to get rid of the DA for the entire area, we would need basically that would mean getting rid of the Waterfront Development Corporation designation, and every single property owner under that would need to sign off on it. And then it would be quite an extensive process to look at all the properties and start assigning them zones under the existing land use bylaw. However, there are cases where we'll just lift the DA for one specific property, just for a reason like this, because it's going to be an amendment to the plan that is just affecting the one property. So saying that the DA is no longer in effect, and now we need to assign it a zone. We could look at assigning it any number of zones. It's just that this process was initiated by the request to assign it the residential single unit zone.
I understand. We're going to have to explain that well to community council, because this is not something that I have seen very often. So thanks very much. Thank you,
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. We're going to go now to Jacqueline Levere for your comments, questions.
Well, here's another place I've visited quite a bit that I see go every day almost. I have a really hard time seeing how one dwelling next to all of these townhouses would look good in any stretch of the imagination. I also wonder, and I don't know if anybody can answer that question, whether it was bad planning as to why, if they own the land, they didn't just add another townhouse on the end, because they could have kept going with the line of townhouses. And if they'd done it right the first time, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now that it's done, I guess, I don't know if it was bad planning on their part or not, but the other thing is, I wonder, I go to cities all over the place where they use irregular, I go to Montreal, for example, you can have 3 flats, one on top of the other, instead of making it for just one person. We're low on housing. Why do we want to give a monstrous, gigantic house next to multi-housing and not just ask the developer or the private owner to think of a way that with an architect that, and I'm sure it can be done, because there are cities that have a lot less space than that irregular place, that in that irregular area, that are building multi. So, and there's lots of parking on the street. So why couldn't there be a 3, if it's a minimum 3 to build there, why not have 3 flats, one on top of the other? You know, there must be something else except making it a 1-person dwelling. To me, I've talked about it with a few people while being down in the park, and they, you know, I've said, what do you think of this area here? And, you know, they've looked at the sign and they've gone on, and they can't see either how that would look right. But that's just the opinion of one person who spends a lot of time there.
Okay, thank you very much, Jacqueline. And I'm going to move along now to Donalda.
Yes, I think I'm a little bit confused on this one because I also don't understand how just one house in this time when we're trying to find land around the area to accommodate more housing. But the other thing is that if the city is interested in purchasing this land for the park, I don't understand why we would want to have a vote on this tonight if that's a proposal that's still out there.
Well, Parks hasn't confirmed whether they're interested in it yet. This is still going through internal review in our departments, so I can't say whether it's just the question that I've raised with them. So it's still under consideration, but yeah, it's definitely one that's come up quite a bit.
But what I'm saying is that how does that then affect our vote onto it tonight with future thoughts?
If I could help, Madam Chair, Donalda, I would just appreciate people's feedback if they think it's worth pursuing by this.
Yes.
If it would give me some ammunition perhaps to use with Parks and my colleagues. So just if you think it might be worth pursuing to purchase this, if folks wanted to mention that, I might find that helpful.
Yeah.
That can come in our motion as part of our recommendations.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, that's it. Is that everything for you, Donalda?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and we'll move along then to Stacey Rutherham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree on the idea of us maybe being a little premature in trying to determine this issue tonight. If there are things still on the table, we're hearing about further internal review on a number of issues, and I don't know why we're talking about it if those aren't complete. I do agree that if there's an option to turn this into parkland under investigation, that should sort of maybe play out a little further. It may be something that would take this off the table altogether and not require our recommendations at all. And as far as downsizing the zoning to eliminate a possibility of multiple dwellings on that site at a time when we have a housing crisis and a lack of accommodation, I don't know that I agree with downsizing to accommodate a single family dwelling on that particular location where we already have the ability to promote a multi-unit accommodation. So,
okay, thank you very much, Stacey. And we'll go to Mark. And I'm not going to try your last name this time.
So apologies for jumping the gun earlier, but my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Trevor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only concern would be if it was switched to single use, would there be any controls as to where the driveway would be located? I'm just concerned with the placement of the draft drawing where it's exiting onto A.Y. Jackson, very close to the corner, if there would be enough clearance for vehicles to drive into the driveway from waterfront. I don't see any problems with views. It looks like a small area, and I don't think there'd be any issues that way. If we could have multiple layers, for example, I'd be more in favor of that idea, or going into a parkland opportunity. But that would be my concern is the where the driveway access would be if it proceeds to a single unit dwelling.
Yeah, I've raised that with our traffic engineers too, because looking at the site, I don't think there's room for it to be off of AY Jackson. And again, that's just my view as a planner. I'm not the engineer, but that's a concern that they're looking at. As I mentioned, the land use bylaw has certain requirements. I'd have to look at it to see what it says specifically about driveways, like what exactly the measurements would be, but to see if there'd be room elsewhere to put it off Waterfront Drive.
Okay, is that it for you, Trevor? Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Diggle-Gammon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What a really good discussion. I always get a little bit, I'm starting to get nervous when I hear the language site specific. Yeah. Because now what I've learned is that site specific means you get a site specific plan, they can go do what they want. Even at the beginning of the presentation, it was it may, this is a proposal, it may look like what is on our screens, but it might not. So understanding what would be the impact of where the driveway is, the sight lines for the rest of the community, compatibility in the neighborhood, all of those things then become a little bit of a mystery to me. And then behind the scenes, you get this approval, and then you know, people get to say yay or no, or maybe not. So the whole site specific gets me a little nervous when I hear that language, because I see that as risk. And in terms of the compatibility, it doesn't seem that a single unit is compatible with that neighborhood. What would be more compatible, you know, I think that a further investigation about whether or not Parks and Rec thinks that it is a property, and whether or not the owner is amenable to selling. I think that that's a big conversation that should be had. If this doesn't go through, then as it stands, and if I understand it correctly, if it stays the way that it is, then they can do the multi-unit townhouse, same as what is already there, right?
Yes.
So that actually probably will be a consideration that HRM might need to think about, because then you think about what is the value of that land, and whether or not HRM wants to look at that, and whether the developer wants to as well. So I think that those are considerations, but in terms of compatibility, it does not seem to me that it's compatible at all. And investigating the parkland would be, should be something to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Russell, did you have anything you wanted to add here?
Not on this one. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. And I mean, what can I say? You fellows have said it all, and I really have, there's really nothing more to say, I don't think. From my comments, I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. And so I'm just going to go straight to asking for a motion.
Madam Chair, it's Tim. I'm wondering if I might suggest something that you will dislike, because historically you don't like them, but sorry, you didn't bring me any bacon anyway. I wanted to see if maybe we could consider a deferral to allow on the decision on this, to allow Ann and I to go off and investigate whether there is a willing seller, A, and B, if the Parks has got an interest in buying this land. And that way, when it came back, that would be off the table. And then you could actually advise us more on the zoning issue rather than the overall scenario. Does that make sense to you, Madam Chair? And I know you hate deferring things, but
well, I don't like deferrals, but I think that we can say that we are not prepared to make a decision until we get more information, which I guess is a deferral, but it's a polite
you can
deferral.
Refer it back to staff. You can refer back to staff for more information, or you can defer a decision. It's up to the group. But anyway, just something for folks to chew on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's up to the committee how they want to handle that. And I need somebody to make a decision soon, because we still have one more item and we're going to run out of time.
It's Donalda, and I would like to see us deferred.
Pardon?
I'd like to see us defer to council till we get more information.
Okay.
Back to staff, I think, to finish up
Back to staff.
the internal,
Yeah,
the
okay.
internal investigations and the questioning that still need to take place.
Okay. All right. So then you would like to refer it back to staff for more information.
Yes.
More information and to complete the internal work that still hasn't been completed yet.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I'll
I would
second
second.
it. Oh, sorry.
Okay, somebody. I think, Mark, you were wanting to second that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it's moved by Donalda, seconded by Mark, and with a little bit of an amendment thrown in there, but we'll let you have the next one because we have to get this done. Okay, moved by Donalda, seconded by Mark, that we refer the item back to staff for more information and clarification.
Completing the outstanding
Okay.
internal.
Yeah, okay, and completion of the outstanding
Internal
items. Yeah, inquiries or items that are being looked at. Yeah, okay. I can't. My words
I
aren't
would even
working
go as far
tonight.
as to say to a determination to refer back for that more information, but also a determination on whether purchasing this land is
Well,
feasible.
yeah, that's what I was trying to say, but
That's right.
some nights, you know, it just doesn't happen with me. But
You're still new at this, Anne.
yes, I know. Okay, so did we get that motion cleared up? Can we ask Alicia to read back?
Yep. So I have that the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee has reviewed this application and would like to review it back to staff to refer this item back to staff to get more information and to allow further investigation and determination into HRM purchasing the land as parkland.
That sound about right to everyone?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And does that give you the direction you need? Is that you fair? I just sorry, Madam Chair, but as long as staff understands what we want.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine for me. I did just see someone raise their hand. I think Scott McDonald, he's the developer. Saw it up on the screen.
Well, at this
I don't
point,
know if okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the motion has been made, and all in favor, aye.
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 Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried. And I thank you very much for that. And if the developer or the representative is still here, we'll ask them to leave and thank them very much for being here. Now, we've got how much time left? Oh, we have about 15 minutes. And we have another case to get to tonight. So we may have to extend our time a little bit. So before we start this, I'm going to ask, would you be in favor if we are going to run over time of extending for 15 minutes beyond the time?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to move that we extend the meeting till 9:15.
Okay. All in favor? We need a seconder.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay. We now have 30 minutes. And we have case number 22691, 8 Walker Avenue, Lower Sackville. And presenting is Brittany Mclean.
Hi, thank you. I will try to be cognizant of the time here. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. I don't know, Andrea.
Just one moment, Brittany. I just have to make you co-host.
Okay, thanks. Just let me know when to try again.
You should be good to go any moment now.
Yes, there we go. Perfect.
That's the story of tonight, any moment now. There we go.
All right, perfect. Okay. Let me just move this out of the way here. So good evening, my name is Brittany Mclean. I'm a planner with the Urban Enabled Application team. So tonight I'm here with an application by WM Fairs Architects, and it's for substantive amendments to an existing development agreement at 8 Walker Avenue in Lower Sackville. So the applicant, WM Fairs Architects, is applying for substantive amendments, and this is to an existing development agreement. So the amendments they're applying for is to enable changes to the exterior building materials and design. And again, that's at 8 Walker Avenue in Lower Sackville. The original development agreement was approved by Northwest Community Council back in 2015. And that original agreement enables 2 4-story mixed-use buildings with 124 residential units and approximately 10,000 square feet of commercial space between the 2 buildings on the ground floor. So the site here is outlined in red. So you can see there at corners Old Sackville Road and Walker Avenue. It's an existing, I believe, like auto repair, auto sales, some kind of sales in there, industrial sales. So the site is located adjacent to a mixed-use 3-story building fronting Old Sackville Road. To the southwest there is the Metro Transit Park and Ride Terminal. And there's also commercial uses, including a self-storage center that you can see off the highway there, and a retail store. So further southeast is a mixed residential neighborhood, and that's with 3- and 4-story multis, semis, and then there's also some single-unit homes in that neighborhood as well. So here's a street view from the corner of Old Sackville Road and Walker Avenue. You can see there, just past those bushes, it's an existing automotive servicing shop on the site. So here's a street view further up on Walker Avenue. Again, you can see the site there. Okay. So the existing development agreement had been approved for 2 4-story mixed-use buildings with a basement level parking garage. So it had 124 residential units in total. All of those units are proposed to be 2-bedroom, 10,000 square feet of commercial space amongst the 2 buildings at ground floor, a minimum of 110 underground parking spaces, and then 90 surface parking spaces as well up on the surface parking there you can see. There's a grade level open space amenity located in the courtyard formed by the buildings. That's down by the lower blue star there. It's like an outdoor courtyard between the commercial spaces in between the buildings. The existing agreement requires the landscape plan to be prepared by a landscape architect when time comes in for permitting. And then there's 3 driveway accesses, and those are, I've tried to highlight them there with those blue stars. So there's 2 on Walker Avenue and 1 on Old Sackville Road. So the access on Old Sackville Road that you can see in the blue star is right in, right out only. So this is all what's approved under the existing agreement, what could be built there today. So the proposed changes that the applicant's asking for include changing to those building exterior materials, color, and design. And then they're also asking for time extensions for the beginning of construction of the development, and then, of course, a time extension for the completion of construction as well. I just want to, it's kind of important to note here that the number of units and the location of the buildings on the site are not proposed to change. So the site, the parking, everything on site will be the same. They're just making changes to the exterior of the building. And the applicants explained to me that what was previously approved was quite complicated. There was a mix of architectural styling, and that they'd prefer to do something a little bit more uniform instead. So the following elevations that I'm going to share with you are from the building to the left. So if you look at, I've tried to include the site plan up to the right there. You can see there's a building A on the left and a building B. These elevations are from building A, but building B, just keep in mind, it would just be mirrored. They are the same building, just mirrored. So this elevation is shown looking from Walker Avenue. So I've tried to point up again in that photo where the red arrow is, that's generally where you'd be standing, and this is what you'd be seeing. So the proposed courtyard there would be to the right, and then the angled darker section that you're seeing would be the corner of the building facing Old Sackville Road and Walker Avenue. So they have building entrances located at the corner and again at the courtyard where the commercial would be. So this elevation here is from the parking lot. Again, just look at the top there and you can see the red arrow. That's where you'd be standing looking at the building. The proposed courtyard in this case is to the left, and then Walker Avenue would run in behind. And again, I'll just point out there's an additional building entrance at the corner, which would be in the middle of the image there, you can see. Another elevation here is from Old Sackville Road. Again, have a look at that red arrow. So you can see the building angles at the corner of Old Sackville Road and Walker Avenue. And then the last elevation here is again from the interior of the lot. If you were on the site, looking straight to the courtyard to your left. The corner of Old Sackville Road and Walker Avenue runs behind the angled section. And then the remainder of the left portion of the building has Old Sackville Road running behind it. So I've tried to illustrate as clearly as possible here. I know it's a little bit confusing looking at the elevations. But I wanted to note in the site plan as well. So there's also a proposed change to one of the driveway accesses off of Walker Avenue. So those three that I explained before that were approved by engineering. Our engineering department has taken another look at this application when it came in. And they are now requesting that one of the entrances, you can see I've tried to outline it in a black star down at the bottom. That used to be the proposed entrance for the underground parking. But our engineering department is requesting that change to go up to where you see the red star there off Old Sackville Road. And that was to meet safety standards today, it would be a safer entrance and exit. So that was requested by our engineering department, and then the developer changed their site plan and show it as you can see it today. Again, just wanted to note the number of units and the location of the buildings on the site is not proposed to change. So the level of engagement completed was consultation achieved through signage on the site, information sharing through an HRM website, and then we also did a mail out notification. So HRM did not receive any calls or emails from the public during that public engagement period, and 36 notifications were mailed, and that was a 100, I believe, a 100 meter area around. So just quickly, the site is zoned LS, which is large scale commercial zone under the Sackville Drive land use bylaw, and it's designated Downsview Beaverbank designation under the Sackville Drive secondary planning strategy. So there's actually site specific enabling policy for this site that was approved by Regional Council in 2015. So that policy enables consideration of the mixed use multiple unit development by development agreement, as it was deemed an appropriate location at that time in 2015 due to the proximity to the Halifax Transit Terminal and the well-developed regional traffic network in the area. So in considering a development agreement, council shall, this is the policies that we look at it as planning and that council should have regard to. And it talks about building entrances being oriented to pedestrian sidewalks, compatibility with surrounding built form and land uses, pedestrian activity on site, and landscape and architectural details. And then finally, traffic access. So many of the policy criteria are not applicable. There's a much bigger list than what I've shown here, because a lot of the proposal isn't changing from what was previously approved. So at this point, staff are simply seeking comments from the PAC on the relevant policy here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we'll get right into this. And I'm going to begin with Jacqueline Levert again and ask for her comments and questions.
I've spoken enough. I'd like to give the time to other people who've had less time.
Okay, then we will go to Donalda. Donalda McIsaac.
I'm sorry. I was just wondering about the traffic, how condensed the traffic is in that area already. And even though there's not going to be much of a change, how it's going to impact walking with all the construction going around where you do have the bus terminal and everything there in the area. And the construction, we already know tightening up sidewalks and tightening up walk spaces for pedestrians is a concern. And how will that impact this project?
Yeah, so during construction, we do have certain bylaws. If developer has to encroach on any public sidewalks, there's permits that they have to apply through our engineering department. Those are called encroachment permits. And so they would be required to make a safety. There must be another way for pedestrians to be walking around with construction hoardings. So that's one way that we would have controls over that during construction phasing.
Thank you.
Okay,
All for me.
thank you. All right, then we will go to Stacy. There you are.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to understand, nothing's changing with what was approved, except that they're going to change the exterior of the building, which is the style of finishing, and they're moving the access to underground parking. But other than that, there's nothing else changing. So I don't know if they offered some indication as to what they were going to do to the exterior of the building compared to previous. This is before my time, you know, back in 2015. So I'm not sure what the change actually is supposed to be.
Well, maybe I can help you there a little bit, because I can recall that we had asked that there be a little bit of change, you know, to make it not just a big flat wall, that there be some either different colors or different in and out of the walls, so that it's not just bloom, you know. And they're also asking that they can delay, like when they get a development agreement, they have a certain amount of time that they have to start it and finish it. And they're asking that the development agreement be pushed ahead so that they don't have to start it when they were supposed to, and they don't have to finish when they were supposed to. So that's another change that's there.
What is the new look for the outside of the building then?
Good
The
question.
new look. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
Yeah, so I did on
previous.
on the slides I can show. So the previous one under the slide that had the existing agreement, it was quite a colorful building. And then the elevations that I flipped you through, those 4 pages of elevations, is what the developer is now proposing. So as Anne mentioned, a lot of the things that we look at, the council should have regard to, and then also planners look at, is the building articulation. And that's kind of like the ins and outs of the building. So it's not just big flat walls, so that it creates interest, but then also so that you, as pedestrians are walking along the street, it doesn't just feel like one big flat wall. So there are many articulations again in the new drawings that they've shown us as well. The architectural styling has changed a little bit, and the developer said when they applied for this application that they were having trouble. You know, it looked like an interesting picture with lots of different articulations, but that it was very difficult to build it that way, and so that they've come forward saying, you know, this is the new design that we'd be looking for, and then we're looking at it to say, okay, does it still have the articulations that we'd be looking for? Are we still focused on having the pedestrian realm down at the bottom? Is the commercial still going to be at the bottom, and things like that? So you're right in saying that there are not many changes to this. The parking lot, all of the landscaping around is not changing. The building number of units, the only thing that's changing there is the exterior materials and then just a little bit of the design. And then again, the access for the underground parking there, that is going to be changed as well. It's proposed to be changed. It wasn't originally, but when our engineering had another second look at it, I believe there were some engineering changes between 2015 and now that said that, you know, there should be access is safer, just different distances. So what they've said is, hey, now that we have, you know, the second chance to look at it, engineering saying this would be safer here, we would prefer it there. So that the developer came back and said, okay, well, fine, we'll put it up over in that corner. So those are the only changes. And then as Anne mentioned again, they're just asking for extensions to start construction and finish construction, because that existing development agreement says you have to start your construction by this date and you have to have it finished by this date. Well, that was done back in 2015. The building's still not been started, so they've run out of time to start on those specific dates. So they're just asking for extensions for those, which we do get applications for extensions quite often. I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Yeah, no, I just was looking at the pictures trying to see the changes, and I'm not as sharp-eyed on the design of the building having changed, so I couldn't really see where those changes were, but thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. And we'll go to Mark.
Apologies. I think the location with respect to traffic and next to the transit terminal is excellent, and so having a multi apartment building at that location seems like a good use of the space.
Okay, thank you. And Trevor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question. I'm looking at the drawing there, and I'm wondering the entrance, the relocated entrance to the underground parking, is that going to be following the same rules as the entrance further up to the parking lot on Old Sackville Road, right in, right out? And if it's not, is there any reason why it's not the same?
That I don't have specifications on. I know just from the previous, looking at the previous agreements, that the engineering department had confirmed that as right in, right out up at the top there. The engineers have not provided me the information on whether the underground parking will be right in and out, so I don't have the answer to that question right now. But it is something I can bring up to council when if council is also interested in having the answer to that question. It's something that we could bring forward to council at that point, but I do not have the answer right now for that. I'm not sure if it's right in, right out only.
Okay. Is that good, Trevor? Yeah, he shut his mic off, so I guess so. And Kathy, Diggle-Gammon, Councillor Diggle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I am a very visual person, and the original drawings had some really nice sloped height differentials, and aesthetically looked really nice. And then when I look at this monochrome looking black, gray, white, from a design point of view, it's not as aesthetically pleasing at all to me, to be honest. And again, it's one of those things where people come back, they show you this and you get this beautiful approval, and then they come back and it's like, yeah, well, no, but we want to change the design again. So, I mean, the materials, yes, I can understand that, but I do believe that the new design has lost a lot of aesthetics that would make something appealing in a community. That would be my comment. In terms of the extension on time, that makes sense. I think that we're going to see a lot more, development agreements that were approved, and we're going to be looking for extensions due to COVID, supply chain, all those really good reasons. But in terms of the design, I would hope that maybe the developer might look at something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing in terms of the design. But it would be interesting to see what the councillor for the area feels about that. So I'll stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we'll go now to Councillor Otis.
I'm fine with the extension. I share Kathy's concern that it's a little disappointing that the look isn't really what we envisioned back in 2015, but I also will give my time to Paul if he wants to speak to that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and Councillor Russell, I'm sure you have something to say this time.
A little bit. Thank you very much. Kathy, thank you for pointing out the aesthetics. That's not my forte. So I will take your lead and the lead of everybody else on that. So I do appreciate those comments. When I first heard about this, when I saw this, when I first heard about it coming to this meeting, I heard that there was an extension of time, and I have looked and I haven't seen what that extension is. So when are they looking for a proposed start and a proposed finish? The diagram on slide 12 that shows the red star with the new inn and the blue star with the old inn on Old Sackville Road, those two stars are about 150 feet apart based on the scale that's at the bottom of the slide. And I'm just wondering if that triggers anything in relation to traffic safety, a traffic impact assessment, or anything else like that. Frankly, I would like to see consideration for that to be right in, right out. One of the One of the things that has been talked about with Old Sackville Road for a long, long time is that people speed on it quite a bit. Now that has just been mitigated quite a bit because of speed tables in the area. That's about it.
Okay.
So does the extension of time and related to the parking. Thank you.
Okay, so Brittany can answer some of those questions for you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So as far as the time extensions go, they're asking for a 3-year to commencement of construction from the date that the agreement would be registered. So let's say it's registered this fall or something, then it would be 3 years from that date. And then for completion, they're asking for 8 years. So those were the same things that were written in the original agreements. Council are allowed 3 years to commence and then 8 years to complete. So they're just asking to kind of restart that whenever the new agreement would be signed. When it comes to that new entrance there for the underground parking, that was requested by HRM Engineering because they had deemed that it would be a safer location for it. When that happened, the applicant was required to go back to their engineer and have an addendum made to their traffic impact study to give a little bit more explanation, make sure that, you know, if it's moved up there, what the traffic implications were. So the developer did respond back to our traffic engineers with a traffic study that concluded that the site generated trips from that and changing that are not expected to have any significant impacts on the operation of streets or intersections adjacent to the site. So that was looked at that time. As far as the right in, right out, though, again, I don't have that information right now, but it's something I can certainly look into. And I can speak with our engineers before we bring this forward to council to figure out whether that is right in or out. And I can connect with you as well before we go to council for this one.
I would appreciate that. We do have a number of apartment buildings in Sackville that are in some stage of development. Some of them are mid-construction, some of them, like this one, are in late stages of planning. And it's just a matter of waiting for them to be built. It's 12 or 13 apartment buildings. I've lost count. We also have a vacancy rate of about 0.5%, 0.7% in Sackville. So it would be nice to get these done sooner rather than later, but I can certainly understand the delays that would be required with redoing development agreement and with the supply chain issues. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you. And I have to, because I was here for the last discussion on this project, I have to remind people again that the access in and out of that road onto the Old Sackville Road is hazardous, to say the least. The buses are sometimes held up trying to get out of there because of traffic coming down the Old Sackville Road. And sometimes it's backed up into the Downsview Mall with people trying to get out of Downsview Mall and get onto the Old Sackville Road to get back onto the highway. We have to find some way to get traffic controls there. I know that the traffic people say, well, you know, it doesn't warrant it. And there have to be so many warrants to get a traffic light. But in this case, traffic lights are going to be imperative, because I don't care if you build an apartment building inside the park and ride, you're still going to have people using their cars, because the buses don't always get them there when they want to be there. I know that for a fact. But how can we handle that? I mean, there's going to be traffic. It doesn't matter whether it's right in, right out. It's where it goes through that intersection onto the Old Sackville Road and then out onto the, well, I guess it's part of the Beaverbank connector to get onto the highway. That's a bad spot. And I agree, it's the right place for an apartment building. It would be a wonderful place for an apartment building if it was also going to be affordable housing. But we won't even talk about that part. What it needs to be is a place that people want to live because they can actually get to it. You know, we don't want it to be a place that it takes you an hour just to get into the road that takes you to your house. That's such a, but the traffic there is probably Connaught Avenue quality at most times. It's gets that backed up. And we have to have some way to get rid of that. You not only have cars coming out of the apartment buildings, you'll have the buses and you'll have the cars coming out of the park and rides at rush hour. Plus you have the people that have been into Sobeys and are trying to get back out. And I may be in there. And, you know, it's, how do we handle that? That's my big question about it. And yes, I don't want to see two buildings that are absolute flat walls and not very attractive. The apartment buildings that we're getting in Sackville right now, some of them arise basically off of the side of the road with they're just, you know, we're losing control somehow. And yeah, I'll stop there because that's my rant for tonight. But I had to put that in there because that I know was a consideration the last time around, and I wanted to be there again. So I'm going to say thank you. And I don't know whether you have any answers for that, Brittany, but you don't have to have.
Yeah, I think it's something that I'm going to look into a little bit more. I'll speak to my traffic engineers just to check over and make sure that there's no red flags, no issues with the traffic there. And then I do want to speak to them about clarifying the right in, right out. So those, if you want to include that in your recommendations that we look further into traffic, certainly do that. And then to Councillor Russell, just so you know, I will contact them and I'll be in touch with you after as well.
Mm-hmm. Were you putting your hand up to say something else, Paul?
I may have been. If yes, if I may.
Yeah, quickly.
Thank you. So Walker Ave is directly across from Downsview Drive. It is not very far away from the intersection at Beaverbank Connector. And traffic is concerned about the overflow going onto Walker Ave, backing up onto the off-ramp. So putting a set of lights in there, I've asked about that over and over and over again. It has been a non-starter every time. What we are getting is pedestrian control. So our regular rectangular flashing beacons, I'm not sure which one comes first, have been approved for that intersection. So we will be getting them, but I don't think we will be getting anything more than them, unfortunately. It's a start.
It's a very small start.
Yep, but we do also have speed tables on Old Sackville Road.
I have them on my road too. Do you want some?
I'd love some more. Let's put them in a truck.
Yes, please.
Okay. We okay. All right. I just wanted that to be brought forward, and I hope that we can stick it into our recommendation somewhere, regardless of whether we ever see it happen or not. But right now, we need to wrap this up, and I'm going to ask for someone to make a motion.
And I think I wanted to speak again quickly, and I think Kathy did as well.
Okay.
Just really quickly, and Brittany, if you could address this, I have no problem with extending a starting date 2-3 years. You know, that's pretty standard. An 8-year completion date is not that common in my experience. And I wouldn't want to be the councillor in an area where somebody could put a hole in the ground and then wait 8 years. God knows I have enough of those on the Bedford Highway. I would really want us to rethink, regardless of whether we approve that or not in 2015. I'd like to understand why an 8-year completion date would even be considered.
Yeah, Councillor. We do in the urban center and our more urban applications, sometimes you'll see 8 years, sometimes you'll see 10 years. And it's just based on, you know, bigger buildings, more units to construct. it's something you could definitely, if you want to add that to, again, one of the recommendations. But it is something, when we do have larger buildings, I mean, this is 126 units, 2 4-story buildings. We do allow that. So it doesn't, the completion dates as well are basically what we put as clauses in our development agreement, is that if it's not completed by that date, at that point, council may say that, you know, well, let's get rid of the development agreement. There's a couple of things that are triggered after that 8 years. It doesn't mean that the developer, I mean, they might not take the 8 years. A lot of the times when we write in 8 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, it's finished within 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, that's been our experience, but I've also seen examples. I mean, what would be the harm of having a 3 or 5 year completion date? I mean, I literally have seen people dig a hole or put in one foundation and then walk away for 5 or 10 years. I think as a council and a staff, we've been trying to avoid those sorts of things. So I may make a recommendation that it'd be something like 3 to 5 years. We can debate this more when it comes to council, but I just didn't know if this was something they were specifically requesting 8 years, or if it's something that you sort of just thought was standard.
It's something that we usually use as standards in our development agreement templates. Yeah.
I don't mind changing that now and then too. Thanks very much, Brittany.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And
Madam Chair,
yes.
Thank you so much. So I'm starting to get a little focused on this design change too. So in terms of a consideration, if this goes forward, excuse me, it's just that for the developer to really have a relook at that design. This is a very, very flat new design. If you know, the difference between what was approved in 2015 and if the neighborhood and the community saw that and said, yeah, this is good, you know, it's going to be very, you know, it's going to stand out and be really nice for our community. But this new design is pretty bland. And so if there could be some consideration to jazz up that design a little bit in terms of the exterior, that would be awesome. Because it looks pretty bland. I don't think I'd want to live there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. If there's no more comments, then I'm going to ask if we go to somebody make a motion.
I'm happy to get the ball rolling then by saying that we recommend acceptance, but that with consideration of another reevaluation of traffic lights and consideration for a shorter completion date.
Okay.
Could we add to that? Sorry,
Yes.
Madam Chair, but could
everybody gets to add something? Yes.
I would like to see something about the design to make it more attractive for the people who will live there.
Okay. You agree with that? Yes. You agree with that, Tim?
That's friendly.
Okay.
The right in, right out of the parking garage entrance.
Okay, right in, right out on the parking garage entrance.
Still friendly.
Okay. Anything else?
I would add that under the umbrella of the traffic lights and the right in and right out of the parking garage, that the traffic study takes into consideration the additional buildings and such that are on the old Sackville Road that are there behind the RCMP station. Those are additional vehicles going up and down that road as well. So I would add that to the consideration.
Yes. Okay. Because there are another 3 apartment buildings not that far up the road that are being built or are almost built at this point. Okay. So if that's what we want to put in there, okay, I'm going to ask Alicia to tell us what we said.
Okay. So Tim, you want to be specific about the traffic light, because I had further investigation into traffic impact mitigation. So would you rather specifically say traffic light?
Including traffic lights, just so
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that as Paul knows, it's been rejected, but just to have a reminder that it's rejected and why.
Okay. Okay, so what I have is that the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee has reviewed the application for case 22691 and recommends approval of the application with consideration given to further investigation into traffic impact mitigation, including traffic lights, a reduction in the completion time from 8 years to between 3 and 5 years, a more aesthetically pleasing external design, right in and right out from the parking garage, and for the traffic impact statement to take into consideration the 3 additional buildings up the street.
I think that covers pretty much everything. I'm seeing nods, so I guess we're good. All right.
Ready for the question?
Did we have a seconder for the motion?
I'll second that motion.
Everybody wants to second the motion. Okay. I saw Donalda's hand go up, so I'm going to take hers. Okay, it's moved by Tim, seconded by Donalda, that whatever Alicia said. It's too late, guys.
Now I'll call for the question that I have a second.
Yes. All in favor? Aye.
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 Contrary minded? Nay. Motion is carried. Really, some nights, this gets to be a little heavy, but I do thank you all for your attention to this, and I thank the applicant for being here, and ask him to leave the meeting now. I just have a couple of more things here. The date of our next meeting, unless something drastic happens, will be March 2nd, 2022. And I will ask now for somebody to make a motion to adjourn, which doesn't require a seconder or a vote.
I'll move that, seconded by the dogs, apparently. Have a good night, all.
Thank you all for being here, and thank